Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of our show, now called Health Declassified. You will remember us for the last 4 or 5 years as being The Yakking Show, and we are just changing the name to Health Declassified to better reflect our total focus on health, holistic health, and all things to do with living a long and fruitful and happy life. And that's it from me. So, first, let's introduce co host Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you. And thank you all so very much for tuning in. We so appreciate having you. We have a special guest with us today. We are very privileged to welcome Dr. Carl Rothschild to the show. Hello, Dr. Carl. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Now, Dr. Carl
Hi.
is the founder, researcher, and owner of Trifecta Light Technologies. He's the industry leader in the LED, infrared, and red light modalities. I can't wait to get into this. So today he's here to talk to us all about this technology. So let's just dive right in. Dr. Carl, let's start with the very basics. What is red light therapy and how does it work?
Well, if I may, I just want to tell you that I was 20 years into my practice before I was introduced to red light therapy. So I've been in practice for 47 years, about 27 years, give or take ago, when really nobody, very few people were doing red light therapy. A bunch of us were what I'll call pioneers in it. And I mean, it was pretty unbelievable when someone came to me and said, just shine this, what looked like a flashlight on your patients, and it's going to make a difference. And to be honest with you, it seemed ridiculous. But I knew the guy. He was a famous, relatively famous medical doctor out of USC out here in California. He was also, so he was an orthopedic surgeon, he was a professor, and I had to trust him to a degree. And it absolutely revolutionized my practice.
Hmm.
And so we were able to do things that, this lady comes to me and she says, can you help me with my gum disease? Because you helped my brother with his shoulder. Only thing we knew back then was that we couldn't hurt. That was it.
Mhm.
The instructions were you can't hurt somebody, but we're not exactly sure how this works. And so you asked me how does it work, and I'm going to tell you it was they didn't know in the beginning, and that's true of a lot of things. They didn't know how aspirin worked for many
Mhm.
years, and many things are like that. But the beauty of it is imagine that I'm going to tell you about something that is miraculous and it has zero side effects. In the 50 years
Wow.
they've studied this, never been a side effect. I've never heard of such a thing. And so there I am using red light, having a lot of fun. And over the years, as you might imagine, it progressively gets stronger. The science is out there to get it, more effective. And then about 13 years ago, it was discovered that there was an element of red light. Now, up until that point, I only used a wavelength that was in the what's called near infrared range.
Mhm.
And you've heard of far infrared and near infrared. Far infrared is just fancy heat. It doesn't make the kind of changes that I'm going to explain to you how near infrared works.
Mhm.
Near infrared is that miraculous wavelength, but it was red. A totally different company was red light only, and they're the ones that discovered that red light could shrink fat cells, could help with weight loss. And if you don't know it, if people don't realize it, there's almost nothing more popular than weight loss when it
Mhm.
comes to anything out there. If you want stay home enough and watch television, you have no idea how many commercials there are on these things like Wegovy and Ozempic and
Yes.
all this stuff, which was originally a diabetic,
Mhm.
Mhm.
drug. And remember, as a chiropractor, we believe in not putting anything in the body that doesn't belong there or yanking anything out that does,
Right.
unless there's absolutely no other resort. So chiropractors say try natural first.
Mhm.
So I'm not a big fan of putting things in the body. But with that said, knowing that weight loss is so popular, and they tell me that there's an element of red light will actually help to shrink fat cells. It doesn't freeze the fat, it doesn't boil the fat, it doesn't break the fat, it doesn't injure the fat. It just, with a certain type of process and technology, it actually temporarily changes the fat cell wall to make it more porous and allow the fat contents to leak out.
Mhm.
And if nothing else is done, it's some of that fat's going to just get reabsorbed. But if you use a certain protocol to move that fat away from the fat cells and eventually to the liver for use or elimination, it's amazing. It's
Mhm.
incredible.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, it's not like somebody can go home then and pig out every night and drink and get drunk. Alcohol is the worst of all these things. as far as fat loss and diet and stuff like that. But if someone will give me or be on a calorically neutral diet, which just means we're not asking them to starve themselves. We're asking them to just be smart, be on a calorically neutral diet, something that will be there for the rest of their lives. Anybody can lose weight by not eating for the next 2 months.
Sure.
You're going to lose weight, but you can't stick with it.
Right.
And it's a ridiculous diet. You don't want to hurt yourself either.
Not
But if you go
sustainable.
on a calorically neutral diet, staying away from the starchy carbohydrates, simple sugars, sodas, and alcohol, and staying within your caloric, usually it's 1,500 calories, could be as much as 2,200 calories, depending upon male or female and activity level.
Right.
At any rate, so that's the weight loss thing. And I loved it. And we started making pads because we put a pad around the belly, around the buttocks, around the thighs, around the arms, around under the chin and face. And we were having great results with that. But then COVID hit. And our practitioners wanted less physical contact between the patient and the provider. And we came up with a bed, only thinking that the bed was going to be a reasonably good substitute for what we had up till that point. But the beauty of the bed is you don't need staff. The person can get in the bed and out of the bed by themselves. So we figured, okay, given that, it would be wonderful. You don't need staff, so there's no physical contact. The patient comes in and says, hi. They go into the room where the bed is. They come out. They go goodbye, and that's it. Technically, that's it. But what we didn't realize, and this is the kicker, is that when you bathe the whole body at the same time, front and back, top and bottom, left and right, inside and out, all at the same time, you're going to have these unbelievable results that we did not anticipate. So early on, we had a guy who couldn't walk. He had Charcot-Marie tooth disease, which is a weird name for an autoimmune disease. And he was one of the first ones, after 6 visits, by the way, after 15 years of not walking and pain every day, after 6 visits, walking, no more pain.
Wow.
And he was one of the first ones to say, thank you for giving me my life back. Why do you think I became a chiropractor in the 70s? That's what I wanted. And I got it sometimes, but now we're hearing it all the time. So can you imagine if you were a health practitioner, if you are, great. If you're not, pretend you are. And I call you, or someone calls you up and says, can you help me? I'm having a heart attack once a week, if not twice a week. And this has been going on for 12 to 13 years.
Wow.
What they had done is they implanted a defibrillator into his chest that many years ago. So up until the point of 12, 13, you can imagine he was already a mess.
Yeah.
That they would implant a defibrillator in his chest. So every time he dies, it would zap him back to life. And that's what he was living through. But every organ and every gland and every tissue in his body was struggling tremendously. He was dying. When we met him, he had no energy. His erectile dysfunction, he had every complaint you can think of. Because if you want to kill off a part of your body, restrict blood flow to it. Put a tourniquet around your arm, and if you don't release that, you're going to lose your arm. You're going to lose your liver, kidney, whatever, when you don't have right blood supply. And every organ in his body, every tissue in his body was suffering. So the practitioner calls me up and says, I got a guy coming in tomorrow. He's having these regular heart attacks. Should I even treat him? Now, our treatments are normally 12 minutes. I said, just treat him for 5 minutes and stay in the room the whole time. That patient went home that night, and that was almost 2 years ago. He's had more treatment, but he's never had a heart attack since.
Really? Never since? Wow.
Hundreds of heart attacks, no more heart attacks.
No more heart attacks.
Goodness.
Dying body, his body is completely normal.
Wow.
Blood pressure normal, pulse normal, energy level. He describes it, he says, my energy is through the roof. And when he went to church, they would all come up to him and go, you look so different. Everything looks different. And one lady, she said, you have found life again.
Right.
And he goes, yep, red light therapy.
There we go. Wow. That's incredible.
And I did not anticipate that. I didn't anticipate that that was going to happen, that it was going to be that effective. And this happens with many things over the many years that we've been doing this. One thing after another, whether it's an autoimmune, whether it's dementia, Parkinson's, or Alzheimer's, or multiple sclerosis, rare hereditary diseases. Remember, On this hand, it couldn't hurt, right?
That's
So
right.
just try it. So
So,
if you have an issue, you go in it for 6 visits. That's 3 times a week for 2 weeks.
right.
It's 12 minutes of treatment. Try 6 visits. And if at the end of the 6 visits, you don't see any change at all, then there's one of few possibilities. One, they didn't plug the bed in. So that's the only thing I can think of, because after 6 visits, it's rare not to see some kind of change. Even when this lady had horrible Parkinson's and her tremors were so severe that she was embarrassed to go to church because she couldn't hold the Bible.
Right.
And after 2 weeks, she still has
She was right.
tremors. They're so
Well,
much more
I am
mild.
curious about something though. Your company has developed a proprietary technology. So can you explain what that is and how it differs from other devices that have that offer red light therapy? Why
Okay,
is yours so
so
different?
is it okay if I tell you how it works first, and then we'll do that, answer that?
Yeah, I'd like to know how it works. And because right at the start, you said at first nobody knew why it worked or how it worked. So let's hear
Beginning,
that.
but when there's not a lot of people doing it and you're not getting a lot of feedback, maybe they're not going to put the money behind doing the research, but it's pretty popular now. So, and it has been for a while. So they did discover how it works. So we talked about fat loss, and that's a separate mechanism, and that's red light only. That has nothing to do with this glorious near infrared. Remember, infrared is broken up in a few segments, but the main popular ones are far infrared, which is just a fancy way of getting deep penetrating heat. It will not make cellular changes like the near infrared does. Near infrared is a certain range, and what they've learned is red, but even more so near infrared, affects the tissue in a very unique way. And the words that I want you to learn are, that you probably already heard it, but I'm going to go over in a little bit more detail, is mitochondria, cytochrome C oxidase, which I'm going to go over in just a second, and these unbelievable, whether you believe in God or evolution, we are miracles ourselves.
Absolutely.
All 3 of us on this screen, each of us individually, is a miracle.
Sure.
And would you imagine that what they learned was that sunlight, which makes sense, can stimulate, not only can it stimulate plants, which if that didn't do that, we'd all be dead, but it also stimulates us as well. Now, we don't do photosynthesis, but what has been found is we do have photoreceptors in our body that are stimulated by the sun, certain elements of sun. And the 2 elements that we know for sure now is red and near infrared. So what does it do? It stimulates the cytochrome C oxidase, which is hidden in the mitochondria, to make the mitochondria come back to life. And why is that important? Mitochondria is the energy of your body. It's the powerhouse of your body. It's the reason why you breathe oxygen and eat food. You create this, what they call energy currency, which is called ATP. And without that, or if it's not functioning the way it should, you're going to be having a process of disease, eventually death. And to reverse that, or to ensure that doesn't happen, back up and stimulate the mitochondria in a very healthy way, no side effects. And imagine stimulating the mitochondria to come back to life, to produce the amount of ATP that is necessary for your body to function, to heal, to move, to everything. Everything in your body is affected by the mitochondria and that ATP production. And now we have a way of stimulating the mitochondria to produce the right amount of ATP, not more than you need, not less than you need, the right amount of ATP. Because let me tell you about chiropractic, and other healing industry feels like this as well. We feel that our job is to remove interference and then get out of the way and let the body do its thing. It's called innate intelligence. Again, whether you believe in God or whatever, when someone cuts themselves, they don't have to sit there and tell each part of your body to do its thing. It knows how to do it. If you're healthy, it knows what to do. So let's get the person healthy, and then all these things will help. So, for example, someone says, well, does it help with back pain? And as a chiropractor, we don't want to focus on pain. Of course, it helps with back pain. But what's more important than that? Because if the only thing you worried about was the pain that you had, I would knock you over the head, you'd be out, and you won't feel any pain. But that's not smart. And what we do instead is we stimulate your body to come back to life and heal itself And then, yes, of course, the pain will go away because the inflammation will go away because the cause of the problem is gone.
Right. So
Now, that doesn't mean red light is therapy. And when I say red light therapy, I'm talking about the combination of red and near infrared. Whenever you hear me say
right.
red. Now, if somebody is not eating right, and if someone never exercises and only does red light therapy, that ain't smart.
No,
But
I agree.
if you can integrate smartly red light therapy, smart eating habits, and smart exercising habits, because the body needs to move. And we're more sedentary than ever before. I mean, when I was a kid, if we needed to change the channel on the television, you had to get up and
You had to
change
get
it.
up and do it. So
You don't have to do any of that now.
Right.
I got to jump in. You've triggered something in my mind here. What's your opinion? My feeling is that a lot of our modern diseases and diseases of affluence come about from three reasons: poor diet, lack of exercise, and also lack of sunlight. And if we look at the shift from rural living to urban living over the last 100 years, we've seen, I believe, a corresponding increase in all these diseases. Am I on the right track here? Is that lack of exposure to sunlight a big contributing factor?
Yes, but sunlight. I mean, we've known in my book, within the first couple of chapters, I talk about the history, and it goes back to centuries ago when they recognized that sunlight had a huge effect on the body, but not as huge as when we magnify that glorious, miraculous those glorious, miraculous wavelengths, magnify them many times and drive them deep into the person's body. So now we're stimulating many of the cells of the body.
Right.
And that's what I was talking about, is by bathing the whole body at the same time. I don't mind people getting face masks. I don't mind people putting a pad over their shoulder. That's fine. And we've always done that. I was involved with lasers in the beginning, but I never got the kind of results that we're hearing now when you bathe the whole body. So I believe in a full body bed. And these are serious pieces of work. So it's not, someone says, well, I can just buy a cheap whatever. Yes, but that's not what I'm looking for overall well-being and health. So just like you don't necessarily have to buy an MRI for your own home, you don't have to buy this for your own home, because it is medical grade, high-end piece of equipment that isn't cheap. It's not very expensive. And if a person has more money than health, we do have people buy it for their home.
Sure.
I use it 3 times a week. I'm 72 years old, and I use it 3 times a week. I don't have a particular ailment, but I don't want a particular ailment. I liken well-being and health like a candle that burns bright right from the beginning all the way to the end, and it sputters out.
That's
not
right.
the last 20 years of your life sitting in a wheelchair. You can't bathe yourself, you can't wipe yourself, you can't feed yourself. I don't want that.
No,
I would have patients come to my office, and I would say, please, God. Now, I wouldn't say it out loud. Think to myself, please, God, don't let me wind up like that.
Like that. There, you're right there.
Because they're not taking care of themselves. And you know why
right.
people don't take care of themselves? Because they're not scared enough.
That's right.
They don't know at the age of 30, what are they doing today? And what is it going to be like? And what is their 80 or 70-year-old self going to say to them right now? They'd say, please, God, don't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't mean never celebrate, but don't, start taking care of yourself.
Absolutely.
If you want to get really scared, go visit a senior living center.
Yeah, for sure.
What people are going through.
Dr. Cole, Kathleen asked you, let's hear how your technology is different. What's special about it?
So first of all, you're looking at a medical grade device. Now, what's important there is, and we get this all the time, where someone thinks that they can tell the difference between one bed and another by getting in the bed and feeling how strong it is. What they're really feeling is heat. And heat is the last thing you want. Heat is the enemy. When we started 27 years ago, we called it cold laser. It was a way of delivering this light energy into the body, but it didn't get hot. Heat is the enemy. Heat dilates blood vessels, brings more fluid to the surface, and blocks the penetration of light. The last thing you want is heat. So you want to have a lot of power without heat. And most of the devices out there can't do that. Another factor, and that's the most important factor, power, not heat. But also our bed will customize it such a way that a person who's 80 pounds is not going to get the same dose as someone who's 400-pounder who's a 400 pounder, because the 400 pounder can absorb a lot more of this energy without generating heat.
Yeah.
And the 80 pounder doesn't have a lot of flesh, and they can't tolerate the same amount of power. They don't even need that much power because they're trimmer and thinner and all that sort of stuff.
So your bed adjusts itself. It compensates for body weight.
Well, the professional provider will set
Okay.
the power. It's
Okay.
not going to, there's too many factors involved. It's not just the size of the individual, and it's not just how much they weigh. There are other factors, but it's a very simple thing. It's like boom, boom, boom. They set the power, both of the red and the near infrared. Remember, red is great for trimming the body. It also has some healing qualities. And if somebody is not overweight and they're trim, it's not like the red light's going to all of a sudden make them skin and bones. That's not what's going to happen. It targets excessive amounts of fat, but it also helps with healing. But the miraculous wavelength, that near infrared, that's my favorite. And again, remember, for many years, I only dealt with near infrared, didn't deal with red.
So I just want to clarify something, because there's a lot of people, including myself, actually, I haven't used it in quite some time, but have infrared saunas with red light. So you're not a fan of those
I did say that.
because of the heat?
No, we're talking about two different things completely.
Okay.
Red light, I'm sorry, infrared saunas, which are far infrared, are saunas. They're nice. I mean, if you want to get heat, for example, I used far infrared in my practice because if I put a heat pack on someone, the depth of penetration is limited because otherwise you'll burn the skin. So you can't get that deep into the body. But with far infrared, we can go much deeper without burning the skin. So it was kind of cool to have them more relaxed with the far infrared. But we didn't see the cellular changes that you see with near infrared.
Okay.
So if I had somebody that wanted to use both far infrared and near infrared, we always do near infrared, or we always do the bed first, and then you can do anything afterwards. So for example, we've had some of our equipment in gyms. I've had 12 practices and 4 in gyms. And what we noticed is that we weren't having the same degree of success in the gyms. It took us a while to realize that no matter how many times we told these people, lights first, sometimes they just finish a racquetball game and come over, or they just go into the sauna, the massage, or whatever. You don't want to do anything that's going to stimulate external or surface blood flow. And all those things would do that. In fact, as a chiropractor, if I'm on the 5th floor and someone has to run up because the elevator is broken, they don't want to be late. They get up to my office and we go, well, we can't treat you right now. They're all flushed. They're all hot and bothered. So we have to wait 15, 20 minutes for their whole body to calm down and come back down as far as their pulse should be at standard, but usually 70, something like that. So what I'm saying is that we do red light first, meaning red light therapy first, and then anything else after, as long as it's smart, anything afterwards.
Right. Okay.
So we also use vibration in our practice. So the person gets on the bed, we have sound frequencies going on, and we also have the capability of pulsing the wave of the lights. So if you're familiar with frequency healing, if you're familiar with Rife, R-I-F-E theory, healing, what you're doing is you're pulsing the wave with a resonating frequency that, interesting enough, that different cells in your body or different tissues in your body resonate with different frequencies.
Okay.
So my favorite frequency is 528. 528 hertz is the miracle frequency. That doesn't mean we don't have others. We teach all of these things. When someone gets our bed, they're going to get 32 things included, including what we call business. If it's for a business in a box, to make sure that they're very successful. So they get the basic training, advanced training, and we also have a coach that will help them to be as successful as possible.
Very interesting.
Again, sorry, I'm just a little bit unclear on one point, and I know the infrared saunas is a different technology, it's different, but I have a sauna with red light in it. So what you're saying is the red light and the sauna together is not a good
The
combination.
red light is generating the heat for you. Is that right?
No, it's
generating the heat.
What's generating the heat?
Most infrared saunas are generating the heat from far infrared and a combination of red light.
Okay.
But they're not for healing. You're not going to make the cellular changes that
Okay.
you would make with a high-end, high medical grade device that
Okay.
doesn't get hot.
Mhm.
So if you're getting hot, I don't have an objection to saunas, jacuzzis, hot shower, whatever. That's not the point. The point is if you're going to be doing this type of therapy that I'm describing, where you're going to make the cellular changes I described,
Right.
you don't want anything that's going to bring blood to the surface that would block the penetration of the light.
All right.
Okay. Okay. So I just also want to clarify something because we hear a lot about EMF pollution, radiation pollution. Can you talk about the amount of radiation a person would be exposed to during a session, considering that we're already so exposed to EMFs through electronics, communication systems, and the environment? Can you
So when
address?
we came out with our first bed that many years ago,
Mhm.
the technology wasn't there yet. So
Mhm.
the lights were getting hot.
Mhm.
And that bed required like 22 fans.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
And it was the fans that was generating the EMF.
Yeah.
And we knew that we needed to, but fortunately, we were now able to, over the years, we had the Pro 100, the Pro 200, the Pro 300, the Pro 400, and now we're on the Pro 450. And our goal was more power, less heat, less EMF. So now I'm proud to say that our bed has only a few fans in it and generates what the term they use is negligible EMF.
Mm-hmm.
I'm none of us is in a favor. I use the bed all the time. I'm not going to be getting in the bed if it's a death trap. I'm not interested in that. And some of the older quality, well, the poorer quality ones and the older ones, well, I don't know if they're death traps, but it wasn't at a healthy level of EMF. But by the way, some of the arguments with people is, you got EMF coming out of your phone. If you have an electric car, there's a tremendous amount of EMF with that.
Sure.
So, I live in Los Angeles, right? I came from Brooklyn, New York, which I never, when I was a kid, I would study this word smog. I didn't know what it meant. I mean, are you talking about fog? What is smog? I mean, I didn't see that. I saw fog. I didn't see smog. And then I move out to California and I get that some days I cannot see the mountains, but in the other days we could see it. That's your smog.
Oh, great.
People say that I should move away from California because I'm killing myself with the smog that, by the way, I'm not causing. I hardly drive. But the truth of the matter is that you're going to be bombarded with all kinds of crap, all kinds of stuff. And the first thing that you have to do is to do the best you can, staying away from those things. And but also more importantly, maybe, is to keep your body as healthy as possible.
Sure. We are running short of time, but I've got one I've got to ask you. Let me give you an observation first. About 12 or 15 years ago, I've suffered from skin cancer quite badly all my life. I lived in Africa in the tropics for most of my life, and my doctor referred me to a trial being carried out at Victoria Hospital in London, Ontario, by I think it was a Dr. Gilchrist, on using red light therapy to treat skin cancers. But first of all, he put a cream on. I can't remember what the formula was, I can't remember much about the cream. And then you were exposed for 30 minutes to this red light, and then you went away for an hour and you came back for another 30 minutes. And it made your skin quite red and sort of little blisters in places. It did seem to reduce the skin cancers, though. So my question, having given you that background, is does your red light therapy have a beneficial effect on skin cancer or any cancer for that matter?
You came from a different country, a country which is more motivated getting people well than how much money the doctors are going to make. That's called socialized medicine. And even though maybe you don't want to be a socialist, the truth of the matter is that when you put profit in the world of health, that's insane. That's insane. This doctor is going to recommend something you don't even know because he's going to make 20 grand that day. And they're not all like that, but it's too tempting. Can you imagine how tempting it is? I mean, if I just check this box, I can make 20 grand, 30 grand, or whatever. So in this country, there is so much money to be made in the world of cancer that if somebody thinks you or I are going to take $1 out of their bank account, we might get in trouble.
Yep.
So the only thing I don't talk much about, even though we have a bed at a cancer center, I'm not going to say the name of it, and our treatment is not for the cancer. We couldn't do that. The treatment is, I don't know if you know this, but people, after they've gotten the treatment for cancer, the radiation therapy, the chemotherapy, they're half dead.
Yeah.
More of them die from pneumonia than you can imagine because their immune system is gone. And we use the bed then, and they can't believe how much better they're feeling, how much better they are. So that's where we reserved. We're trying to stay away from the cancer world that wants to kill anybody. I mean, do you know how many famous naturally oriented medical doctors and others have been killed from weird?
Yes.
I'm trying to not wind up dead in a ditch is the word that we use.
Yeah. No.
If it's
heard
okay
We hear
with
you.
you, I'm not going to talk about cancer.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We're with you. We follow what's happened to a number of doctors
Yes.
quite closely. So yeah, I'm aware of it. I
But
just
listen to
wanted,
this carefully. No side effects.
yeah,
And number two, there really are no contraindications. We're going to put cancer aside. Throw that one over here.
sure.
No real contraindications. So you can get in the bed with metal implants, with a brand new shoulder, a brand new hip, with electrical
Interesting.
components. But they put TENS units in the back, inserted and surgically. They have defibrillators, pacemakers. It's a light. It doesn't affect these electronic components at all. So there is really the only contraindication is not a real contraindication, and that's pregnant women. And the reason is we know that the mother and fetus would benefit from these lights. But if that baby comes out anything other than perfect, they're going to want to blame somebody. And I tell them, let's not be in that neighborhood just until after delivery. Now, the mother, especially if she had a C-section, if she gets in the bed, that recovery is going to be unbelievable.
Right.
Quick as can be.
So how do people get your products?
So we only have one.
Okay.
So, and the reason is I don't want to create an inferior product. I only want the best.
Okay.
You know, I'm not a car company that has a low end product and then a high. We just have the best. That's it. And that's this bed. What I would recommend anyone to do, there are three kinds of people that want to be involved with red light therapy. One, they want treatment and treatment only. Two, they want to buy the bed for their home because they have more money than health. And three, most commonly, are people that want to use this in a business. So if you're a health practitioner, you know, and of course, everybody that comes on your thing they probably feel as nutty as I do about what they're talking about. I wrote the book. I lived this thing and breathed this thing. So, I mean, people know I'm a nut. So my staff member made this for me. Can you read that?
Get in the bed. Lovely.
She made a mug for me that says get in the bed because that's my attitude. What's the worst that'll happen is try 6 visits, get in the bed. So then what you do is you go to the website, trifectalight.com, which I think you can see over here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a section there where it says, you know, do you want to find a bed to purchase or are you interested in just trying one out or both? And you just click that section and we don't list each office for a bunch of reasons, privacy reasons, stuff like that. But when you send us your information, we'll find the closest location. I have a great staff that will handle that. If you're interested in buying, there's another click there and we can have somebody that can talk and discuss why it makes sense to incorporate this in your practice. I'm going to tell you something. If you had twins with identical facilities and identical skills, but this guy's got the bed, he will put this guy out of business. That's how, but of course I'm a little nuts about this, but I mean, can you imagine you would be hard pressed to find anything that we couldn't help? And we started with the top of the head and hair restoration, anything in the eye, mouth, thyroid, every gland, every organ. And so to that end, you don't have to take my word for it. Go to Google Scholar. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Google Scholar.
No.
And Google Scholar is scholar.google.com. And then put in the word red light therapy. And take a guess how many hits you're going to get, how many entries you're going to see.
No
Would
idea.
you believe 3.5 million?
Really? Eh? Wow. Wow.
Now, they're not
That is
all
interesting.
perfectly situated, but then what you do is you write red light therapy, and lupus, red light therapy, and whatever. And typically you'll see anywhere from dozens to hundreds to thousands of articles, double-blind studies and research papers, all kinds of stuff. So it's all over the place.
Right.
So the question is that I have for you guys is, why is it not in every hospital?
It should be.
Well, I think
not there.
I think you answered that when we were talking about cancer, which you don't want to talk about because I guess there's not enough profit in it by keeping people healthy, right?
Exactly. It's what they call a revenue killer.
Yep. Yeah.
So our target is other than a hospital. So
Sure.
What can I do?
Sure.
Fine.
So you have a book. Can you tell us about your book and how people can get it?
So you can go to Amazon.
Oh,
okay.
It's called Illuminated Healing, and it's 200. It's really good. I'm a good writer, but I'm not a great writer. So I handed it to the editor, and when it came back to me, I went, "Oh my God! It like sings compared." I mean, it's all the same material, but they really did a great job. So it actually reads well, and you can get it as a Kindle version, which means you can read it on a computer. You can get it as the book itself, or you can also, if you really want to torture yourself, you can listen to me for 8 hours or whatever on audible.com.
Audible. Okay, great. I got another quick question for you, Dr. Cole. Have you got any practitioners in Canada using your bed?
Not a lot.
Not a lot, but you have some.
Canada, we do have some. So what you'll do is you'll go on there and put in your area, your city and whatever. And but don't be surprised. Your job, Canada has been challenging for us.
I'm sure.
They don't want us to bring in American-made products, not as easily as we thought it would be.
Right, and even more difficult right at the moment.
Everything is going to be very challenging.
This tariff war. No, great. Thank you very much for that. And for audio listeners, the contact details we've been talking about will all be in the description on whatever platform you happen to be listening to this on. And of course, they will be in our newsletter, on the descriptions on video, and in a blog post on our website. So from me, thank you very much, Dr. Carl, and thank you to our listeners and our viewers for being with us. Back to you, Kathleen.
One final question, Dr. Carl. How do people contact you?
Same way, they go on the website, trifectalight.com, and they go to the Contact Us page. I want to tell you that athletes do phenomenally well with this. I didn't bring that up. So they get in the bed before their activity that day, and they will perform far better. And then they get into bed later that day or the early next day, and they'll recover
better.
So we have the bed with the NBA, we have it in Florida. We have 2 facilities that are very, very high-end athletic facilities. We had it with the field and track Olympic Training Center, and we have videos. So if you guys go to YouTube channel and go to YouTube and put in Trifecta Light Official, we have over 100 videos there, and some of them are great.
Wow,
really great videos and explaining all this stuff.
Well, thank you so much. And
no, that's really good.
Very much, Dr. Carl. Yeah. And thank you all once again for tuning into our show. We so appreciated having you. And until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.